You have been doing everything right. You pray, you tithe, you serve, you try to live with integrity when nobody is watching. You have been faithful in the small things, account overdrawn, relationship broken, job gone, dream delayed. Did being a good person make things worse for me? Because the guy who cheats on his taxes just bought a boat. Rock bottom is not where God abandoned you. Rock bottom is where God begins. The Bible is full of people who loved God and lost everything before they received anything. Joseph, Job, David, Paul, every single one of them had a rock bottom chapter, and not one of them hit the floor because God forgot them. Every single one of them hit the floor because God was building something in them that could only be built there. Today, I want to show you 5 specific reasons God allows good people to reach rock bottom, and after each one, the exact thing most believers do wrong. Because the bottom is not the end of your story, but what you do while you are there determines everything about how the next chapter begins. Here's something nobody tells you about success and comfort. They are excellent at hiding things. They hide wrong relationships that feel right, character flaws never tested, a faith that was really just gratitude for good circumstances. Rock bottom strips all of that away. Job 23:10 says, "But he knows the way that I take. When he has tested me, I will come forth as gold." Gold does not become gold in comfort. Gold becomes gold in fire, and the fire does not destroy what is real. It destroys only what was never supposed to be there. The relationships that disappear when you hit rock bottom, they were not foundations, they were decorations. God loved you too much to let you build your entire life on something that was never going to hold. Most believers spend all their energy trying to rebuild what just fell. They rush to reconstruct the same relationship, the same plan, because rebuilding feels better than sitting in the rubble. Do not rebuild immediately. Sit still long enough to let God show you what was worth keeping and what was quietly holding you back. This is the one that changes everything. Most people think the breakthrough is delayed because God is withholding, but the real reason is almost always this. God is building the foundation first because what is coming is heavier than what you had before. The person you were before rock bottom could not have carried it. Luke 6:48 says, "He is like a man building a house, who dug down deep and laid the foundation on rock. When a flood came, the torrent struck that house but could not shake it because it was well built." The digging happens before the building, and digging is not comfortable. Digging feels like going down when you expect it to go up. Joseph spent years in a pit, then in prison, not because God forgot him, but because the assignment ahead required a man whose character had been forged in places comfort never reaches. You are not being buried, you are being planted. Most believers pray only for the bottom to end. God, get me out of here, and that prayer is not wrong, but it is incomplete. The prayer that changes things is not God, get me out of here. It is God, build in me what you brought me here to build. This one is hard to accept because it requires trusting that God's no is just as loving as his yes. There are doors you were running toward at full speed, plans you had mapped out completely, and then everything collapsed. Proverbs 16:9 says, "A person plans their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." God can see 3 chapters ahead. You can only see the page you are on. Sometimes the path you were running down with everything in you looked like a destination, but it was actually a detour that would have cost you years. Rock bottom is sometimes God's most urgent redirection. It is him closing a road you would have stayed on forever. The closed door you are grieving right now might be the most loving thing God has done for you in years. Most believers fight the redirection. They chase the fading relationship. They force the door that is closing. They call it persistence, but it is control. Complete trust knows the difference. Let the closed door be closed. Open your hands and ask God, where is the open one? This is the point that hits the hardest. Because most of us do not realize how much we were depending on the wrong things until they are gone. The job that disappeared, you did not just lose income, you lost your identity. The relationship that ended, you did not just lose a person, you lost your sense of worth. The plan that collapsed, you did not just lose a goal, you lost the thing that made you feel safe. God allowed all of it to be removed because he had been watching you build your security on foundations that could not hold the weight of eternity. Matthew 6:33 says, "Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you." All these things will be added, but only to a life that is seeking first what actually lasts, a life that is learned. God alone is the source. Rock Bottom has a way of teaching that lesson faster and more completely than any sermon ever could. When everything is stripped away and the only thing left standing is God, you discover whether he was actually enough. And the answer is always the same. He was enough. He was more than enough. They rush to replace what was lost before they have learned the lesson. New relationship before healing. New plan before seeking God's plan. Take the time. Learn the lesson completely, because if you skip it, God will bring you back to it. This is the reason you cannot skip the bottom by going around it. 2 Corinthians 1:4 says, "He comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort others. When they are troubled, we will give them the same comfort God gave us." Your rock bottom is not just your story, it is somebody else's lifeline. The person who will hear your testimony 3 years from now, they are sitting exactly where you are sitting today. They need someone who has been there, not someone who read about it, not someone who sympathized from a distance. Someone who was at the bottom and can look them in the eye and say, "I was there." That testimony cannot be manufactured, it cannot be borrowed, it can only be lived. The depth of what God does through your testimony is directly connected to the depth of what you went through to get it. You are not just being rescued, you are being equipped. Your story, the real version, the hard version, the version you are almost too embarrassed to tell, that is the version that sets people free. They are ashamed of the bottom, they hide it, minimize it, rush past it, and lock away the very thing God was going to use to change someone else's life. When you come out of this, tell the truth about where you were. Do not edit it. The unedited version is the one that changes lives. Here's what I need you to hold before we end today. Rock bottom is not a sign that God is punishing you. It is not a sign that your faith failed. It is not a sign that the blessings skipped you. Rock bottom is where God does his most permanent work. False foundations removed, wrong directions corrected, dependence on everything temporary broken, trust in the only permanent thing built. And here is what every single person who has been through the bottom and come out the other side will tell you. What came after was better than anything that came before. Not because the pain was worth it in a cheap motivational poster kind of way, but because who they became in the bottom was the person who could finally carry what God had been preparing. Psalm 42 says, "He lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and mire. He set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand." You are not stuck at the bottom. You are being set. And what God sets you on will not shake. Hold on. Keep trusting. The bottom is not the end. Before you go, of these 5 reasons God allows the bottom, which one do you most need to hear today? Drop just the number in the comments. Because naming where you are is the first step toward trusting God with what comes next. And if someone in your life is at the bottom right now, share this with them today. They need to hear that where they are standing is not the end of their story. Subscribe so we can keep going deeper together. I will see you in the next one.